Welcome back to Investor Mindset Secrets podcast, where we help you think like an investor in your everyday life. In today's episode, we're going to talk about breaking free from traditional financial advice. This is a very important topic because it's fundamental to becoming an investor and thinking with an investor mindset. So let's get started. Most people are trained with financial advice that is built on the consumer mindset. The focus of the advice that they receive is to control spending, save money for the future. Although that's good advice, financial discipline is important. The problem with it is that it also comes from a scarcity mindset. It leaves people stressed, it leaves them stuck, and they're afraid to move forward with their lives. But entrepreneurs are different. Entrepreneurs grow by thinking like investors. They work on building assets, mastering skills, and creating opportunities for their lives. When you look at the statistics, most people have no idea where their money is going. 65% of Americans have no working budget. 70% underestimate their monthly spending by more than $100. And I would say this, many people look at that and say it's because people are lazy. It's not because people are lazy or irresponsible. The problem is that the traditional tools that financial gurus tell you to use are complex and intimidating. Do a Google search sometime about budgeting tools and just, type in the word budget and see the type of complex budgets that you're going to get. Most people are so overwhelmed by the process that they avoid it altogether. They want nothing to do with it at all. Traditional financial advice teaches people to shrink their life to fit their money. The investor mindset teaches you something completely different. It teaches you to grow your skill sets so that your earning power can expand over time. It says, let your money work for you rather than you working for your money. And the investor mindset also helps you to leverage hidden resources that you've overlooked for many, many years. It teaches you how to experience freedom with what you have today. Now, I'm not saying necessarily that you'll experience financial freedom this moment, but you can experience a freedom that consumers don't know. It's a mindset freedom. It's freedom to follow your goals and dreams, the things that are burning desires in your heart, to finally pursue those and follow what your heart is telling you to do, what you think God wants you to do. That's what it's all about. Finding your why and following that. If you're watching on Apple or Spotify or Amazon, I have switched to my PowerPoint slides, so I would encourage you to check out the video so that you can see what I'm talking about on the screen. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 keys to escape traditional financial advice and how to shift into the investor mindset. The first way that we're going to talk about how these two mindsets are different is in the area of complex budgeting versus interconnected assets. So traditional financial advice is a consumer approach. Budgeting from a traditional financial advice is a consumer approach. It focuses mainly on managing expenses by an endless number of categories. If you follow some gurus out there, they might tell you to take your money and divide it into envelopes. You might have 10 envelopes that you stuff bills into. A lot of people use this type of system, but the problem with it is twofold. Number one, you don't look at your finances holistically. You're only looking at them piecemeal. You never stop to ask yourself whether you need to spend this money in the first place. And the second problem that you can have with category budgets is that it's easy to get blindsided by them. You can be at the grocery store one week and get blindsided by the fact that you bought something at the mall that was an unexpected purchase the previous week. It happened to me so many times when I used to follow category budgets. I can't tell you how many times that happened. And it's something that I got tired of, and it's why I gave them up, because they don't work. All they do is blindside you, and they don't force you to look at your finances holistically. But an investor mindset is different. Investors and entrepreneurs understand that every asset that they possess is connected to one another. Every single solitary asset that you have can be used to create an entrepreneurial business. I wrote about that in my book, Forgotten Secrets of Passing on Generational Wealth, which is available on Amazon, by the way. And you can look at it and see the assets that I mentioned there. Not only your money, also your time, your health, and your habits can be used together to create and propel you toward an entrepreneurial business. It looks at your whole life, not just one little piece of it. And the second area where these two mindsets are different from one another is traditional financial advice acts as if your money is the only asset that you have. It overlooks how your use of time shapes your spending decisions. I like to say that where the time flows, the money goes. How this works is if you spend all of your day at the mall, like say a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, where is your money going to go? It's going to go towards things that you buy at the mall. Perhaps food that you buy, perhaps clothing, whatever purchases you spend that day are going to be the direct result of you spending your time at the mall. Now, there's nothing wrong, obviously, with going to the mall on a Saturday, but if you do that week after week after week, it can have a cumulative effect on your finances and drag you down financially because you're spending all your time in one place on consumer-based activities. Whereas entrepreneurs prioritize time mastery because they know that money follows time. See, money is a lagging indicator. Time is the leading indicator. Where you spend your time, your money is going to follow. Where the time flows, the money goes. So entrepreneurs focus on skill building and value creation because they know that those two things are what's going to help them be more successful over the long term. So you have to get out of this mindset that money is the only thing that impacts my finances. Time is the biggest thing that impacts your finances. Most people don't have a money management problem. They have a time management problem. Fix your time management problems and your money will follow suit. Your money will be more in order. Your money will be spent how you want it to be spent rather than spent on frivolous things just because of an impulse buy. And the third way that these two mindsets are very different from each other is that traditional financial advice comes from a scarcity mentality. It's based on these principles. Don't lose, don't spend, avoid risk. You got to play it safe. It tries to protect your finances, but it never produces anything. When you look only at money, you only have a certain amount of money in your bank account. But when you look at your time, time is something that everybody has the same amount of. And it's the wise use of time that will help you to get out of the scarcity mentality. These things are all tied to each other. As you master your time, you're going to have more of an abundance mentality, which is what the investor mindset has. Entrepreneurs operate from a mindset of abundance. Opportunities can be created. Skill sets that you want to learn can be learned. It makes you more resourceful with what you have. Because here's the thing, if you're on somebody's plan to pay off debt, they'll probably have you on that plan for 3 to 5 years. And after that, they might tell you to go out there and start saving your money. And that could take another 5 to 7 years. So here you are spending a large chunk of your life, 10 to 12 years, on this program. It's a scarcity mentality. Whereas if you operate from an abundance mentality, in 10 to 12 years as an entrepreneur, you have the ability to multiply your wealth far greater than just working for an employer and sticking your money in a bank and getting paid interest rates that the bank says that you should have. Trust me, as a stock market trader, I know what types of returns you can get, what types of returns are possible if you become an entrepreneur. And the fourth area where these two mentalities are radically different from each other is in the area of risk. The consumer mindset or traditional financial advice tells you to fear risk and you should avoid it at all costs. Here's what it comes down to. Because people lack discipline in their use of time, it doesn't give them confidence that they will do what they need to do at the moment that it needs to be done. So let's say if you're trading in the stock market and you get into a trade and you have a profit target in mind and a loss target in mind. So you're going to let that stock move as long as it operates within the parameters that you set for that trade. But the problem is if it goes your way a little bit and then turns around and goes against you, people get into this mentality that I was making money and now I'm losing money, so I'm going to stay in until I make that money back. But there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. And what can end up happening is you can end up losing a lot more money because you didn't have the discipline to do the right thing. You have to be able to trust yourself to act in your own best interest when the time comes. That's where the investor mindset comes into play. You can take calculated risks with knowledge, strategy, and skill. Entrepreneurs advance while others are frozen with fear. I know what it's like to trade on the market. When I was an early trader, it was very, very scary to me. And it can play a lot of mind games with you if you let it. But if you have discipline, you can take calculated risk with skill and strategy and not have to fear anything. You can act in your own best interest while others are frozen with fear. It's not a natural response, but it's something that you can learn over time and get better at it as you go. And the last area where these two mentalities are very different from each other is in the area of knowledge versus mastery. See, consumers or people who think from traditional financial advice, they think that information is the end game. Consumer thinking glorifies information. So consumers will go out and buy books, they'll buy videos, they'll buy courses, and they start out very enthusiastically, but then they burn out quickly once that initial motivation fades. See, it's not what information you have, it's how much do you profit off of the information that you know. How much are you mastering what you've already heard? How much are you putting into practice the things that you know you should be doing? So investors or entrepreneurs pursue mastery, which builds confidence and clarity. If you can master a skill set, like trading on the stock market or advising people in their lives, becoming a life coach, it's going to give you confidence and clarity. That's why entrepreneurs grow while others remain stuck, because it's all about profiting off of what you know and having the discipline to implement it when the time is right. So as we wrap up this video, here are ways that you can apply this to your life. I want you to choose one of these 5 areas and make a move on it this week. The first one you could do is simplify your finances by focusing on assets, not categories. Look, it's more important that you stretch out your money over time than it is managing it by categories. If you want an envelope system, I have a simple envelope system for you. Just take whatever money you have after you pay your bills and divide it across the weeks that are in between your paychecks. So if you get paid every 2 weeks and you have $1,000, just take that money and divide it across both weeks. You could make it 50-50 and put $500 in one envelope and $500 in the next envelope. And what's going to happen when you do that is you're going to look at your finances holistically. You're going to look at that money and say, do I really need to go out and buy Starbucks every day? Because it's going to show you the implication of that. Because if you do that, you'll have less money for the other things that you need. So I would just say put it into 2 envelopes and make sure you stretch it out over time. Most people get into credit card debt because they run out of time between their paychecks, usually in that last week, the last 4 to 5 days before they get paid again. So if you can make your money stretch out over time, it should help you to avoid having to reach for that credit card to get a few gallons of gas before your next payday. The second thing you can do is view your time as your most important financial asset. I would take an inventory of what you're spending your time on. I'm not saying don't watch a movie, don't watch football if you're a guy, but if you're doing that, 7-8 hours a day, you got to cut back. Okay, it's just that simple, because you're never going to be successful as an entrepreneur if all your time is spent on consumer-based activities. So view your time as your most important financial asset and see if you can carve out some hours during the week to spend on the things that matter most to you, like an entrepreneurial business or whatever it is your heart desires that you would do. The third thing that you can do is to write down one scarcity thought that you have and replace it with a possibility. Rather than fearing what could be happening, replace it with a possibility. So let's say you fear AI and what AI is going to do in America in the next 3 years, the more that you find out about AI and become an expert on it, you'll be more valuable going into the future. So it's taking a fear that you have, a scarcity thought, and replacing it with a possibility, saying, hey, if I learned more about AI, how could I use it today in my everyday life to help me do what I need to do? A fourth area that you can consider is take one small strategic risk, something uncomfortable but meaningful. So let's say you wanted to write a book. All right, let's go out there and take a step about writing that book, whatever it may be. Carve out some time from your week to do it, or ask a friend or a loved one to help you stay accountable to do it, so that you will report to that person your progress during the week. Do something strategic, something uncomfortable, but make it meaningful. And then the fifth thing you could do is practice one skill for 10 minutes to move closer to mastery. Okay? So if you need to have more patience in your life, spend 10 minutes a day trying to practice more patience. One thing that I do is I like to read Bible verses on patience. Proverbs 16:32 is a very good Bible verse about practicing patience. And that one, if you memorize it and say it to yourself on a daily basis, it can help you to have more patience. Your future will change when your mindset does. A lot of the problems that we face are problems of our mind. Chuck Swindoll, who's a famous preacher, said, Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% your response to it. And I wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. When you take the time to work on the things that matter most to you and you don't overreact to situations and you don't act with fear, you will be amazed at what you can do. And when you trust in the Lord, you'll be amazed at what He can do through you in your life when you trust Him with everything that you have. So as we wrap up this video, if you want to break free from the consumer mindset, if you want to break free from traditional financial advice, be sure to subscribe to the Investor Mindset Secrets podcast, where each week we'll unpack strategies, mindset changes that you can implement in order to think more like an investor in your everyday life.